Alright, well, I'm sorry it's taken me so long to make a new video, but, I was going to finals and just sort of ran out of topics for a while and just didn't really have too much time. And then the break, and, I just was relaxing for a while. But now that school has started again, sort of gotten back in the groove with classes, I figured I would make a new video, let you guys know that I was, still going to be doing this, that I haven't given up yet. Somebody had asked me about supplements, so I figured, that's definitely worth a video. Um, I figured I would first, sort of go over what supplements are in general, what are the different kinds of supplements, and also give you examples of sort of what are my favorite supplements for the Core 1L classes. So first of all, supplements. Some people will tell you that you can just rely on supplements and essentially learn the law through that, and really not read the cases all that much. But I'm a little bit more old school about that. I think that you should read the cases, and supplements should be used exactly as their name implies. They supplement your reading when you need sort of to fill in a hole for some gap of knowledge or on a specific piece of doctrine that might be difficult to you. So you read the cases, and there are some areas that you're not too comfortable with. Then you turn to a supplement just to reinforce what you've been learning in class. Now there are different kinds of supplements. There are more a few different kinds. I guess you would call them. Some are horn books. Now, what is a horn book? It's a very detailed, very long, what we call a treatise of a certain area of law. There might be one on civil procedure or contracts, and these books can be 1,000 pages, have a million citations, and go much more in detail than you would ever go in any class. So that's the first kind. Another one is a commercial outline. Now, it's going to be structured like an actual student outline, but be much more detailed, of course. It could be, hundreds and hundreds of pages with sort of a black letter um, summary of all the areas of law. It's not going to break it down like a textbook would, but it gives you much more encapsulated versions of the different pieces of doctrine. So those can be helpful if you just want to look up something really quick and have it in outline form that you could really, synthesize and copy and paste into your own outline that you're making for the class. And then you have what sort of a hybrid kind of supplement, that being almost like it's like an abbreviated textbook form. It might be something like the examples and explanations series is a common example of this last category. I have one right here. These are very common books you'll see in law school. Now you see it's not terribly long, and it's divided up into chapters, and each chapter is very much a summary of a certain area of law, bare bones, pretty accessible. And then at the end of each chapter, they have questions and answers, which are really helpful because you can go through these examples and see how good you can formulate an answer yourself, and then read the model answer and see how close you got. That's something you're not going to get in a treatise. It's not something you're going to get in a commercial outline usually. So I find these sort of hybrid summaries, especially this examples and explanation series, very helpful. So I wanted to just go through the main classes and let you know which are the particular supplements that I found most useful. In constitutional law, there's a book by Erwin Chemerinsky called Principles and Policies, or Constitutional Law Principles and Policies. It's a very long book, so it's not the kind of book you're just going to read cover to cover. But let's say you look up an important doctrine, you're going over substantive due process or something, you can look it up in that book and read the chapter on it. It'll really give you a good background on it, really detailed. This guy Chemerinsky, he's as good as it comes if you're studying constitutional law. So I found that book very helpful, very detailed. Again, in law school involves so much reading, so to think that you're always going to have time to read the supplement chapter on a given topic is wishful thinking. But if you're really efficient, you can make time to sort of supplement your reading with a little bit of with this additional reading on the side. In criminal law, there's a book called Understanding Criminal Law by Joshua Dressler, and this is another book that it's just really the best for that particular subject, because in criminal law you have a lot of common law, the criminal law that's built up over centuries in the different states, and then you have what's called the Model Penal Code, and that is sort of a model formulation of how certain drafters feel that the criminal law should be if it were enacted on some kind of across the board manner. And it involves a great comparison of common law and the Model Penal Code. So you want a book that really highlights that comparison really well, and I think that Understanding Criminal Law by Dressler is really a great book for that. Contracts. I used a Hornbook in that class. I couldn't find a real short, abbreviated summary that really worked for me, so I used a Hornbook by a guy called whose last name is Farnsworth, and the book was just, I guess, called Contracts or Farnsworth on Contracts. You could just look that one up on Google and find it. It's a very long and detailed Hornbook, but it's something that if you look up the relevant sections for what you're learning in class, it can be very helpful. Just wanted to add in that when you're using a Hornbook, the best way that I found to really find the most relevant sections was to look to the case glossary, and you can look up the cases that you're actually reading in class, and it'll tell you what section of the book you can find that particular case. It'll tell you by page, and you just go to that page and read the relevant section that case was referenced in, and you might get some good context on what you're learning. It might put it you see the web and how it pieces together with all the other important cases in that particular area, so it can be very helpful. Civil procedure. I used the examples and explanation series for civil procedure. It's by a guy named John Glannon, and it's really an excellent book. It covers the basics of things like jurisdiction and venue very well, and it was really helpful to have the actual examples and the practice problems for a subject like civil procedure, because you really get to apply it and figure out if you really know it. So the examples and explanations for CivPro is really good. And for that, I would get one of the most. Some people also ask me about what edition of these books should I get. That's one of the only subjects where it's pretty important to get a recent edition, because the federal rules of civil procedure are always getting changed. So it can never hurt just to have the most recent one there. For torts, I also use the examples and explanation series. It covers the basic doctrine really well. I mean, that book, it was probably the most helpful one of all the law school supplements that I used, just because it was so pertinent. Everything that you read is pretty much exactly what you'll be hearing in class, word for word. Whereas a lot of the other subjects will have some deviations, and you won't necessarily cover all the main topics. Torts is very standard in what you're going to be covering, and that book is really helpful. And property is the last of the 6 really core 1L classes, and that one I really couldn't find a good supplement for. Property itself is really a combination of a lot of archaic doctrine, and it's hard to make a real comprehensive and effective property supplement, because every professor is going to teach it differently. So honestly, I did not use any supplement for that class. If anybody finds a good one, be sure to let me know, and I'm happy to recommend it or take a look at it. But that is the class I did not use supplement for. But in general, now you have some of my recommendations for the supplements that I used. Also, how supplements are used. If you have any questions you want me to elaborate a little bit more on how I use different supplements, by all means, let me know. And yeah, hopefully you'll be able to supplement what you're learning this semester with some of these books. Again, it really should be just a supplement. Don't ever fall back on letting these be the primary thing you look to during the semester. These aren't what you're supposed to use to be learning the law. You really need to be able to read the cases and draw out the principles of law and then apply them when you read, it should be reinforcing the information, and then when you do the practice questions, it should be a way to apply it as preparation for the exam. You can do it throughout the semester, but it should really be just a process of learning it, reinforcing it, and then actually applying it. So again, don't get into a habit of letting yourself rely on these supplements too heavily. So hopefully this was helpful, and I'll definitely, get back in the habit of making some more videos when I get some good questions, and good luck to everybody this semester. All right.